So the way that I approach internal rate of return is that I don't discard the criteria. Actually, personally, I find it useful to know what the internal rate of return is for a project. However, I make my decision based upon net present value. So the sort of project evaluation that I'm familiar with in my consulting, I always like to see the analysis done on the net present value, and then alongside present the internal rate of return. So you have two of these criteria available. Now there's some other methodologies for doing project evaluation. One of them is the so-called payback rule. So what you do is you evaluate how long it takes for the project to pay back. So suppose the initial expenditures for the project are $1 million, and the project will generate $500,000 a year for 4 years. Well, by the payback rule, you get paid back the $1 million in 2 years. So the payback time is 2. Now, there's a number of problems with this methodology also. One thing is that the cash flows are not necessarily discounted. $500,000 2 years from now is not $500,000 today. So sometimes what we do is modify this to discount the cash flows using the appropriate discount rate to get what's known as a discounted payback. So in my example, the discounted payback period would be greater than 2 years. It would be about 2.3 years, depending upon the interest rate that you choose. Now the payback has got some of the same problems that the internal rate of return has. For example, having a payback in terms of years says nothing about the scale of the project. So you could make the same mistake of taking a project that pays back quickly but is a small change project. Whereas there might be another project that has a longer payback time but has huge positive present value. And you don't accept it because of this criteria, ignoring the scale. There's some other measures that we detail, for example, the profitability index. And this is an index of the present value of the cash flows to the initial cost of the project. So it's like net present value is the present value of all the cash flows minus the initial cost. And this rule is the present value of all the cash flows divided by the initial cost. Now, the problem with this is also the problem of scale. So you could have a huge profitability index for a project that is a trivial project, very small scale. And you could have a lower profitability index for a project that is a large-scale project with large net present value. When you divide the present value of the inflows by the initial cost, you basically cancel the scale out. So it is not a rule that I would suggest using on a standalone basis. It's highly problematic in evaluating mutually exclusive projects. So these are some of the rules, but the bottom line in all of this is that you should probably focus on the net present value and use these other criteria as supplemental information in the decision-making process.